Hello there and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy. Today's episode will be another entry in the season preview series and we will be focusing on the LA Chargers today. Now, for those of you who haven't seen one of these episodes before, I will be going through my projected depth charts. Of course, we're in the midst of training camp. We've got preseason upcoming. However, I don't expect the starting lineup come September to vary too much from this, although I will discuss some of the training camp battles, or at least spots that I think are open to potential training camp battles. Before going through the schedule, sort of fairly loosely, just giving a bit of a summary of what I think the key points in that schedule are for this team, and giving my projected record for the 2017 season, before finishing up with what I consider the three key areas for this team. If they are to make a playoff run, these are areas that are going to have to perform, or areas that are going to have to not go wrong for this team. So we'll head in with the offensive starters. At quarterback, of course, the veteran Philip Rivers. Still, for my money, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. He's been, doing wonders with very little the last few years. He's been playing behind some poor O-lines and had some decimated receiver groups because of injury. I think this year there's certainly a possibility that he'll bounce back and have a very good season. Still one of the best deep throwers in the league. At running back, Melvin Gordon really came on strong last year. He'll be the number one back. He performed well in both the pass and the run game. I think he's got more power than people perhaps expected, especially after such a disappointing rookie season. He's got a good burst to him, and he is, as I said, an asset in the receiving game. I expect him to be health not being an issue, one of the top backs in the league. I think Brandon Oliver offers them a solid number two who can contribute in all phases, much like Gordon. The wide receiver group looking a lot stronger this year. The one concern, well, there's a couple of concerns. Keenan Allen, who was performing very well before getting injured again last season. If he's healthy, he's a very good possession receiver. The question is simply health, but he's a good route runner. He's got very sure hands. He'll be an asset. Mike Williams, the number one pick for this team, he's got some back issues. He's likely to miss all of training camp and may miss a chunk of the season. It's maybe a bit ambitious to expect him to be the number two. When I initially came up with this list, things didn't seem as bleak as they do now, so there is a chance we won't see much of him this year. It's certainly going to be a steep learning curve if we do indeed, with missing camp and a large amount of snaps, but he's a big physical power type receiver. It's definitely something this offense is needed. It's just whether he'll be able to contribute this year, I'm not so sure. And Terrell Williams, who performed very well last year, I'll be very surprised if he's not at least the number three. He's certainly going to have to, I think, earn the role in camp, but based on what we saw last season, he was far more productive than anyone would have expected, and I expect him to contribute heavily this season. At tight end, this is a good group. Antonio Gates still going strong, obviously not the player he once was, but is still an intelligent receiving tight end, very dangerous in the red zone. Hunter Henry, I think, is a very good second option. I think he's better than a lot of starters on a lot of teams. He should only get better with more experience. I expect him to potentially become the number one over the course of the season. He performed well in the red zone last year, so him and Gates offer a lot of potential mismatches. Rivers does like going to the tight end position, so expect productivity here. And we move on to what for me is the concern, the offensive line. It's been an issue for a while. They've tried to revamp it. We'll see Russell Okung this year at left tackle. Joe Barksdale will likely be the right tackle, but that spot could potentially be open to other players. Okung is a decent player. He's just had issues staying healthy, and he can be a little bit inconsistent. He's not the best run blocker in the world, but his pass protection is usually pretty solid. Barksdale, a below average tackle for me, doesn't do a particularly great job in pass protection, and I think he could potentially be a bit of a liability, particularly with the pass rushers in that division. At the guard position, we'll see Matt Slauson, who's, for me, the definition of league average, but one of my favourite pickups in the draft in Forrest Lamp. I wouldn't be shocked to see Slauson potentially as a second stringer. I think that spot will be open, but Lamp will almost certainly be starting. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. I expect him to be very effective early in his career. And at centre, Spencer Pulley, who I just simply need to see more of before forming a proper opinion on him. Hopefully he'll have a bit more talent around him. It'll be easier to form a judgment this season. And at kicker, Josh Lambo. To be honest, I'm quite high on this offense. I like the pieces they've got. I think I'm a big fan of Philip Rivers. I like the running back group. I like the receiver group, although the Mike Williams situation has put a bit of a dampener on things for me. If he can come back over the course of the season and give this team another red zone weapon and a potential deep threat, then I think this is going to be a very dangerous offense as long as the offensive line can hold up. But between Gordon and Rivers, the backfield's fantastic. There's definitely some weapons that Rivers can use to great effect. I am expecting good things for this group. The defensive side of the ball, defensive end, very strong position. Melvin Ingram, who's one of the most perennially underrated players in the NFL. He's really developed after a couple of injury hampered seasons to become one of the better two-way ends in the league. He does a great job against the run, and he's a very effective pass rusher, even if the sack numbers don't necessarily reflect that. And Joey Bosa, who was just phenomenal last season. I mean, he exceeded, you'd think, all expectations for a rookie, particularly one who had that extensive holdout that cost him some game time, but he was exceptional when he was on the field. I don't see any reason for that to change going into year 2. You'd think more familiarity and experience is only going to improve his game. The defensive tackle position, I'm expecting this team to be in a 4-3 this year, by the way. I've got Brandon Mebane and Corey Legit. Both of these are players who have been very effective at one point in their career, but not so much as of late. Mebane's an older player now. He was very, very good player for the Seahawks. He's experienced, and he can get after the passer a little. I'm not sure how much he's got left in the tank. Corey Legit started his career pretty well. He just seems to have, just stagnated, I guess, as a player. The talent is there, but it's not shown on the field. He's been a bit of a liability in the run game for me. He's not offered nearly enough pass rush. He needs to step up. Otherwise, I wouldn't be surprised to see him benched at some point over the course of the season. The outside backer spot, I've got Kyle Emanuel and Jeremiah Atuochu. I think Atuochu simply for the experience, and he can rush the passer in packages where that's required. Emmanuel, I think these spots are both certainly going to be open in camp if someone really can step up. Middle linebacker though, Denzel Perryman, big fan of his. I think he's a really solid run plugger. Not going to be the best coverage guy. He's not quite as fluid as you'd like, but I think he's an intelligent player. I think he will lead this group well. The corner group, this is a very good group. Casey Hayward, who's one of the best zone corners in the league, played exceptionally well last season. Packers probably regret letting him go. Jason Verrett, who just needs to stay healthy, or Verrett. He's also a very good corner. He could be a number 1 for most teams. I wouldn't be surprised if he is, and Hayward assumes a number 2 spot. Either way, they've got 2 great starting corners there. And the rookie Desmond King, who I will expect to come in, play as the free. I wouldn't be shocked to see Hayward playing in the slot and putting King outside. King looks more your traditional man coverage outside guy. I think Hayward could do a very good job in the slot where he can just read guys' eyes and make breaks on the ball, where I think he's at his best. But either way, I think these 3 give this team a lot of options and should be one of the better corner groups in the league. And the safety position, they're going to likely be Dwight Lowery and Jaleel Adai. They're the 2 players back there with experience. I think with the corners in front of them, they'll be able to play a lot of deep zonal roles. I wouldn't be surprised to see Adai used almost like Cam Chancellor maybe, though, playing in the box a fair bit. I expect to see this team using a fair bit of cover 3 this year. And the punter, Drew Kaiser. I like this group mainly because those pass rushers and corners are going to make this team very difficult. For me, the big question is how well they hold up against the run. The interior, I mean, I like Perryman, but I don't think there's a huge amount of athleticism in that linebacker group. I worry about the defensive tackles and their ability to hold up against power running teams. But I think if that can come together and perform admirably, the rest of the group will take care of the pass game. The rush will be there from Ingram and Bosa. The corners I'm expecting to be productive. It's got the potential to be a pretty solid group. Although I do worry a lot about depth generally with a lot of this defensive unit. The starting 11 looks okay, but beyond that, it's worrying. In terms of the schedule, this team's going to have to come out firing for me. They have a pretty tough slate up until their bye, which is right in the middle of the season. The Broncos, the Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Eagles, who I'm expecting to be a lot better this year, followed by the Giants, the Raiders, the Broncos again, and the Patriots. There's no gimmies in that group, so this team's going to have to get it together before the bye. After that, things do get a little bit easier, but it's certainly not inconceivable this team has a bit of a slow start and is out of contention by the end of that bye week. 3-5, certainly not outlandish. However, I have a lot of faith in this team heading into this season. I'm not entirely sure why, but part of me just really thinks they've been so unlucky recently. They're kind of due a little bit, and Philip Rivers, he's still an exceptional player. I think this year it really all comes together for him on offense. I think there's a lot. The players on the defense the key players will play up to a high level, and I think rather than last year's 5-11 or something around that kind of record, I have them going 10-6. I think they're going to navigate that early season. It's pretty rough, that early season rough patch. It's always going to be tough in that division. There's no cream puff team to get 2 easy wins off. But I just feel like this is a year where it's all going to come together. I'm a big fan of this Chargers team, kind of rooting for them in some ways. And I have them going 10-6, which I think may be a bit ambitious looking at that schedule, but that's how I've done it. And there's 3 key areas though that will need to work out for that to happen. I've hinted at these throughout the video. The first one is health. As I mentioned, this team has been plagued by injuries, and of course I could level this at any team, but as I mentioned, I feel this is a team with a good quality set of starters, but very little depth almost across the board. Any kind of key injury to this team I think will be absolutely debilitating. They're going to be relying on their stars in order to have a successful year. So can't afford that rash. Hasn't started positively with the Mike Williams news, but you never know. At the end of the day, he is a rookie, so it may not be the worst thing that could happen to them, but they can't afford something like Keenan Allen to go down again. Will really hamper this group. The run defense, as I suggested, teams are going to take their chances with the run, even teams that wouldn't traditionally do it so much against this team, because Ingram, Bosa and that corner group certainly make the run look like the safer option. The pass defense looks like it's going to be dangerous. I'll be very surprised if it's not. So the run defense is going to have to hold up its end of the bargain. Otherwise, we saw this happen last year with the Broncos, where teams didn't really feel that they wanted to face the challenge of the Broncos pass defense, and rightfully so. And the Broncos run defense wasn't up to it, and it cost the team a shot at the playoffs. I think you could end up with a similar situation here. The run defense is going to have to hold up. And the offensive tackles. Rivers has been under siege over the last few years. There's a reason he's had so many turnovers. He has been beaten up, and frankly the protection has to be better. I think it can be. The talent level across the line is better than it's been. Again, the depth is a problem. They are relying on some inexperience at the guard position. But if they can hold up, I've got no doubt. You've got a great runner there. You've got a great quarterback who's got some weapons. They're deep at tight end. They've got a good group of receivers. It's just down to these guys to let Rivers do his thing. If they can do that, as I said earlier, I think this offense is going to be very productive and will be able to win this team some games. You don't want to get into a shootout with this Chargers pass defense, I don't think. So there you have it. Those are my fairly optimistic thoughts. But if there's one team that might not be expected to do much this year that I'm happy to take a flyer on, it's the Chargers. Just hoping they stay healthy enough to prove me right. If they suffer a rash of injuries, I reserve the right to change this before the season begins. But if they're in good health, I'm very confident in this team. I think they're good in the key areas for today's NFL game, and I think other than even actually considering the Raiders, they might be the most explosive team in the division offensively, and I think that will serve them well in what I expect to be some fairly low-scoring divisional games this year. So let me know, what do you guys think? Do you feel particularly good about this year's Chargers or not so good? Let me know. As always, we've got the comment section below. We've got the Cover Zero Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. Always happy to talk ball. If you've enjoyed this one, check out some more episodes covering every team in the league over the course of the month. I've covered half the league already, so check those out on the channel. There's plenty of other stuff on there as well. Especially stuff like, I think, the draft and franchise reviews for the last decade, they're really good. I really think they should be checked out. And as always, if you could like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, it'd be greatly appreciated. As always, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Have a great evening, and go Bucks.